There are few gaming brands as iconic as Razer. Its three-headed snake represents esports performance and the pinnacle of gaming gear to many. But how did it get here? How did Razer go from a small sub-brand of a mouse sensor company to one of the biggest gaming brands of all time? A conglomerate that's worth $1 billion. This is the story of Razer. It's the 1940s. A person named Robert Krakow is born.
Well, I was a gamer, back in the 90s. And
little was known about his birth and history, and few would have predicted that one of his most famous achievements will come in a world that was drastically different to the one he was born into. For another boy, it's 1977, and he's a young Chinese kid that is born in Singapore. Just like him, it's a young and upcoming nation full of growth and excitement. His name is Tan Min Liang, and his friends call him Min. As a child, he loved gaming on his IBM 206 PC, sneaking in sessions with his brother Min Han when they were little and their mum was out. Like most traditional Chinese kids born in Singapore, he had strict parents, high expectations, and really little freedom. But in that environment, Min and his siblings all went to lead extremely successful lives academically, with all four of them becoming the iconic Asian professions of either doctors or lawyers.
And I've got my sister who's a doctor, my other sister's a lawyer, my brother's a really well-respected clinician oncologist, is super smart, and I did my law degree, so 2 doctors, 2 lawyers, go figure, right?
Like his siblings, Min was a high performer, going to the best schools in Singapore, supposedly, like Raffles Institution. Sorry, nearly threw up. But while he was a great lawyer and his work was going to keep him very comfortable in terms of money, Min never felt like it was truthfully the right choice for him. He was just like a good kid, and till that point was more than anything just following the guidance and tutelage of his parents. So while he remained lawyering, he kept his eye open for an opportunity of something much better. Let's go back to Robert for now. He's close to about 60 now, in the 1990s, and he's a gamer working at a company named Karna. They make really high performance mice for the time, with top level performance optomechanical encoders. Basically, they made really good balls for your mice, when mice used to have balls. Now mice are all ballless and circumcised. In the late 90s though, Karna and Robert didn't feel that balls were enough. They wanted to make the first ever gaming mouse. A mouse that wasn't just meant for performance and the average consumer or work, but a mouse that was built specifically for the growing subgenre and niche of people playing games. But while they had the engineering chops to make the gaming mouse, they needed more skills than just being smart nerds that could engineer some sensors and peripherals. They were trying to create a whole new market, a niche that had never been tapped into before, a whole niche that was completely underdeveloped, called gamers.
we've designed the Razer mouse to meet the specific needs of the hardcore gamer.
And to do that, you need a very specific set of skills. One that an average gamer could never really have, and that was called understanding other people. So what did they do? They paid someone else to do it. No, seriously, Razer, its iconic three-headed snake logo, tagline, and aesthetic was actually the work of a marketing company called Fitch Inc., an advertising agency that Kana hired to basically create the brand of Razer, which at this point was really just a sub-brand of Kana itself. The logo was inspired by gamers' desire to eat up the competition, and the name suggests that the mice was the weapon to do so with. And also the black and green aesthetic, which has now become synonymous with Razer as a brand, was inspired by early video game art, and for some reason, according to Fitch Inc., tattoo art, which they said was very related to gamer art. While being a sub-brand of Kana though, Razer was also given free rein to act like an independent company and act like an independent brand, so that it could downplay its roots to the very technical and rather dull mother company of Karna, which allowed it to have space to start from scratch and build a cohesive image to properly target a niche that they were trying to build from scratch: gamers. Also, because the brand was developed alongside the development of the gaming mouse, the whole packaging process, the whole product, everything was very cohesive, and that allowed it to be a product and launch that was very smooth and unified. And the name of this first mouse? Boomslang. Named after the venomous South African snake, which is about half as toxic as your average Valorant player.
Jet, revive me, use your ulti, Jet. Please revive me!
The Boomslang was fundamentally a good product to begin with, especially especially when placed alongside its competition of boring ball gaming mice.
And I was just looking for something better, and we had some technology, and we decided to build our own, and that was the first true gaming mouse.
It had a scroll wheel with more encoding steps than any other at the time for precision b-hops or scrolling Excel spreadsheets, and unlike most mice at the time, it had a shape that wasn't trying to completely break your wrists. It actually tried to be somewhat ergonomic. It wasn't perfect, but it was really much better than a lot of other mice at the time. It had a lot of glaring flaws, but it was the first to ever hit this niche, and with excellent branding, packaging, marketing, it was a smashing success. But in 2001, tragedy struck. Wait, no, scrap that line. In 2001, Kana went out of business, possibly because of another tragedy that hurt the economy greatly. Investments they were waiting on never came, and as a result, they were out of money like an average college kid after a weekend out. And Razer seemed like it was going down into oblivion along with Kana. And that is where the baby from earlier, Min Liang Tan, comes in. He met Robert in 1998, apparently, allegedly, in a Quake lobby online, and they soon actually became friends and business partners. In 1999, after the launch of the original Boomslang, Min, a Singaporean lawyer, helped distribute the Boomslang to Asia. Now, some sources say he helped with designing it, including Min himself in some interviews, but the info on this is about as blurry as your eyes after a 12-hour-long session of League of Legends. Now, at this point, Razer is dead for about 4 years, but in 2005, Min Liang and Robert used their magic powers and possibly a bunch of connections Min made as a business lawyer to jumpstart Razer back to life. Brand new, but not completely brand new business venture. They established dual HQs in both Singapore and San Diego and set to work, releasing their first ever independent mouse, the Diamondback, named after another venomous snake. If they ever run out of venomous snake names, by the way, they could just use the name of my ex. They continue hustling and innovating and quickly build up a reputation for being an exciting brand, with the iconic tagline I'm sure you've heard of, for gamers, by gamers. And if you look at Razer's products over the years, Razer really has done some pretty interesting, sometimes wacky, but a lot of cool stuff. All the way back in 2009, Razer actually tried to make wireless gaming mice a reality with the original Mamba Wireless. By today's standards, it's garbage, hot trash, but to be fair, I've used it and it's actually somewhat passable, especially for the fact that it came out in 2009. Also, it did cost $150 in 2009. Remember the whole hoo-ha people had about the G Pro X Superlight costing $150 when that came out in 2018? Yeah, Razer did that first in 2009. And this was 2009, which was basically a year immediately after the really terrible 2008 recession. Now you know why Razer has a rep for being crazy expensive and to many, cash-grabbing company.
In the comment sections, a lot of you guys are writing in the comments like Razer products suck. They break, they're expensive, they're ugly, etc. And I don't feel like that commentary, that discussion is without merit.
In 2010, Razer's iconic and rather hated on keyboard, the Black Widow, was launched. It was named after a spider because your hands looked like a spider when you put it on a keyboard, which is actually pretty smart if you ask me. Unlike the Black Widow spider though, it wasn't going to bite your head off. It might help you have good movement so you can shoot the heads of enemies, but it wasn't actually going to kill you. In 2012, the Windows MacBook, as I like to call it, was launched. This is the original Razer Blade, and it was a insanely gorgeous laptop when it first came out. It did kind of just look like a black MacBook, but it did start a revolution for Windows laptops, where manufacturers started realizing, hey, Windows laptops could actually feel good. It could actually feel premium, decent, and that there was a market for premium feeling Windows laptops that could compete with the MacBook in terms of feel, finish, and build, which is what it had to do because it did cost 2 times as much as the next best option. Also in 2012, my mortal enemy was born alongside the brilliant Razer Blade, Razer Synapse. I really hate mouse software, and I still do. But also around that time, I think about 2014, my personal favorite Razer product of all time was launched as well. One that I wish they do bring back in the future, the Razer Death Stalker. It was way ahead of its time. It was basically a keyboard with a Elgato Stream Deck in it. It was too early though, and its release was honestly just Razer being ahead of the curve, but not having the tech there yet to basically make the ideas practical and be popular, which actually is a common theme throughout threw out Razer's concepts and ditched and scrapped ideas. Great ideas, but the tech needed time to catch up. Cooler than the Razer products you could buy though was always the crazy concepts they would release and tease or joke about that you couldn't actually. Project Christine, for example, was the craziest yet cleanest and easiest solution to custom PC building that I had ever seen. And while it'll never ever happen, it looked nuts and gave us a first glance of what a easy to build, easy to assemble and streamlined custom PC could be like.
Oh god, I lived.
Project Valerie as well looked bonkers as a concept that would never work, but was truly exciting. And really recently, Razer, seeing Secret Lab's success, I suspect, released a prototype called the Razer Sophia desk. I don't know why, but they decided to name all their concepts after females. I guess because for a gamer, getting a girl is a dream, so a concept that never comes out should be named after a girl. That makes sense. They've also had many excellent trolls that in reality could actually be interesting or just funny products to buy. Most notably launched, or at least announced, on April Fools. Things like the Razer Toaster, things like the Razer, which is a Razer by Razer, and the Razer Naga phone, because the Naga has numbers on it, so it looks like a phone. I actually want a Razer Naga phone. These ideas are definitely daft, but they're hilarious and it's kind of just fun to enjoy. In more recent times though, Razer has seen a lot of change. From 2015 on, they seem to be on an absolute conquest of experiments, expansion, and acquisitions.
Gaming peripheral maker Razer purchased smartphone brand Nextbit and brought the company's staff on board.
Razer, a hardcore gaming company, just bought the iconic audio company founded by Star Wars creator George Lucas, THX.
We're going to happen. Razer acquired Ouya, the micro console.
Recharge your game with Razer Gold.
Razer, the US Singapore firm, is set to raise as much as $550 million from its Hong Kong IPO.
In 2015, for example, it acquired a company called Ouya to seemingly try and compete in the Android gaming TV box craze that started with the Nvidia Shield. Was discontinued a few years later, a sign that the craze and Razer's attempt to make it work was never really a great plan, as was the next one. In 2017, it bought Nextbit, a phone startup, as Razer was trying to make their phone idea work, a gaming phone, the Razer phone. Now this idea definitely had potential, but failed since both mobile gaming and the execution of the Razer phone was not quite there yet. It was both undercooked and served to an audience that wasn't quite hungry enough yet. Even though a Razer Phone 2 did come out in the end as a follow-up sequel, the whole project was discontinued and scrapped, which is a bummer because I really think it had potential and died before it ever hit maturity. In 2017, Razer also went public on Hong Kong's stock exchange, making a metric butt ton of money with a stock code of 1337, of course, and was one of the most successful IPOs of that year in Hong Kong. They, however, delisted in 2022, meaning that didn't quite work out. Or maybe there's some sort of financial play here that I'm not seeing. I mean, I see it, but I can't say it because I don't have any evidence. It also acquired MOL in 2018, which was a company that was a pretty big payment platform in Malaysia and actually started Razer's journey into the finance space with things like the rather unsuccessful Razer Pay and the much more successful, still alive follow-up called Razer Gold that seemingly somehow hasn't died. Apparently it's quite big in Malaysia, but I wouldn't know. Around this time too, Razer also started to act more serious, wearing three-piece suits and leather shoes, and began to wander into more of a professional space. Razer announced a bunch of professional-looking products that were really office products because they wanted to expand into Logitech's territory, office peripherals. They also started to professional up their image with redesigned logos, cleaner-looking laptops, and serious office gear so that you could game on this, you could also bring it to work without being ridiculed for having rainbow RGB. It also flexed its big money moves and expensive three-piece suits by opening a brand new office in Singapore in 2021. A huge building, a huge HQ with really quite a nice aesthetic alongside expansions all over the world with its business, like opening a flagship store here in London on Regent Street. And that leads us to present-day Razer. Today they are humongous, and while gaming gear is still a big part of who they are, it is an increasingly expansive company that covers more fields than just gaming. No longer a tiny snake, sorry, I meant above average snake, they're now a thick anaconda that even Nicki Minaj will be scared of. It's exciting to see, but it's also fascinating to see how today's Razer, with its minimalist, redefined logo, diversified businesses, and constant stream of new ideas, products, and experiments that constantly also get scrapped, feels so different. Many of these ideas that I've talked about seem to be scrapped pretty quickly, before I feel many of them can even properly grow. To me, the biggest of the undercooked and unnecessarily early deaths has to be that of the Razer phone. It just needed time to grow and get good and find its audience. And in my opinion, the greatest example that shows the potential the Razer phone had was the ROG phone, which continues today in its 6th iteration and is a pretty big success. But unfortunately, Razer never seemed to have enough patience to let the phone blossom. Razer today is a completely different animal. Gone are the young upstart ragtag roots of original Razer, where the old boss Robert put his email on every single product, so if you had a question or you wanted to talk to him, you could actually reach him. Since then, it's been replaced by an entity that still seems interesting and cool and has really good branding and great marketing with many unique products, some of which are really good, but it does feel as a company somewhat colder, less exciting, and definitely much more corporate. So that's it. It's how Razer went from a sub-brand in a mouse-censored company to a gaming giant, from a tiny subdivision to a massive billion-dollar valuation. It's fascinating to see and exciting to follow, since we have no idea where this three-headed snake is going next. And I doubt Razer really does either, since it has 3 heads, millions of ideas, and is looking in all directions at all times. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video about the history of Razer. I don't really have equipment here in London to review, so I thought it would be fun to just talk about the companies that made the things that I've been reviewing for the last 5 to 6 years. You guys like this series? So tell me down below whether you did enjoy it, like and subscribe, you know, all those things. And I'll see you guys around.